Paradise Lost, I will say, is a book which is much more near and dear to me for a number of reasons. It was certainly written by a Protestant, there's no question about that, and it is written in England. And I included Paradise Lost and also from the Divine Comedy, Inferno. Inferno from Divine Comedy, I included them, I put them together because they are kind of thematic. And the reason I included them is I taught a course a while ago called Hell and the Devil. And I discovered, particularly the first time I taught that course, which was back in the 90s, that most people, in the pews, most people's vision of what hell was like, or most people's vision of what the fall of Satan was like, did not come from the Bible. It came from either Paradise Lost or Inferno. But they would pound the table. No, it's from the Bible. You know that? Yeah, it says right in the Bible. There's a sign that says,
abandon hope.
Abandon hope. It's written in the Bible. Of course, it's not. It's in the Divine Comedy about what hell is like, what the fall from heaven was like. Long descriptions of the devil, Satan, and what he's like, and his Paradise Lost talks about in the Bible, the sum total discussion of the battle in heaven between Satan and Michael is this long. Well, Milton gets 3.5 chapters out. So it's not surprising that that's what we remember, because it's an expanded look at it. So Paradise Lost is known as an epic poem. It's considered one of the great literary works in the history of the Western world. Any argument, Gene?
None.
Milton was a very stern looking gentleman. And this was published in 1667. This here is actually a poster for an 1873 stage play of Paradise Lost, which I just think it must have been marvelous that they were staging plays based on Paradise Lost. We ought to do that here. Wouldn't that be cool? We ought to stage, that's two main themes. There are obviously other themes in it, but I think the two themes are the fall of Satan from heaven and the fall and banishment of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. So the two of them kind of go along. Another question I would ask people, I said, well, in Genesis, does it identify that the serpent is Satan? Sure it does. Well, actually it doesn't. The only place in the Bible that identifies the serpent as being Satan is in Revelation. But they had Paradise Lost so ingrained that, well, sure it does. It's right there in the Bible. Angels, including Gabriel, Uriel, Michael, and Raphael, are all part of the action. So he takes the big angels who were from the Bible and the Apocrypha. And it's included in this list because even today many people's impressions regarding the fall of man and the fall of Satan come from Paradise Lost. Of man, well, this is the argument. This is the beginning. Of man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree whose mortal taste brought death into the world and all our woe. Good Protestant original sin stuff here. With the loss of Eden, till one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat. And chiefly thou, O Spirit, that dost prefer before all temples the upright heart and pure, instruct me, for thou knowest, thou from the first was present. That to the height of this great argument I may assert eternal providence and justify the ways of God to men. Now, Milton, who's a well-known, that I mentioned, stern writer at the time, even he couldn't get away with that last one. Because people said, well, wait a second, you're just John Milton. Who are you to say you can justify the ways of God to men? And so he has been called on that line ever since this was written, but he obviously did not remove the line, so there it is. Satan's followers include Beelzebub, Mammon, Belial, and Moloch. These are all taken either from the Bible, the Apocrypha, or at least intertestamental works, like the first book of Enoch. Belial is mentioned in the Bible, and once in the Old Testament, once in the New Testament. Book 6 describes the fall from heaven, which is a 3-day battle. First between Michael, the archangel, and Satan, and finally, I guess that wasn't enough for Milton for his operatic sense, finally Christ himself gets into the battle and battles against Satan. And isn't this a wonderful illustration? This is Gustave Doré. This is from the 19th century. And Satan is cast to earth, and for the first time he can feel pain because he's been cast to earth. Isn't it marvelous? Here's a little bit from that 3.5 chapter section. I'm not obviously going to read the whole thing. Michael, from the armory of God, I like that, the armory of God, was given him tempered so that neither keen nor solid might resist that edge. It met the sword of Satan with steep force to smite descending, and in half cut sheer nor stayed. But with swift wheel reverse, deep entering, shared all his right side. Then Satan first knew pain. So if I can interpret that for those of you who can't follow Old English, Michael stabbed him in the side, and Satan hurt him. And that writhed him to and fro, convolved, so sore the grinding sword with discontinuous wound passed through him. So Michael stabbed
Ran him through.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the heinous and despiteful act of Satan, done in paradise. So Satan's fallen to earth, and so now Satan's going to start, messing up mankind. And how he, in the serpent, had perverted Eve, her husband she, to taste the fateful fruit, was known in heaven for what can escape the eye of God all-seeing, or deceive his heart omniscient, who in all things wise and just, hindered not Satan to attempt the mind of man, with strength entire and free will armed, complete to have discovered and repulsed whatever wiles of foe or seeming friend. For still they knew, and ought to have still remembered, the high injunction not to taste the fruit. Whoever tempted, which they not obeying, incurred, what could they less, the penalty, and manifold in sin, deserved to fall. Isn't that marvelous? So in other words, it's our fault. We deserve to fall because we didn't listen to the Lord. My award-winning reading was from the last chapter of Paradise Lost, and this is the end of the last chapter of Paradise Lost, and I will attempt to capture my award-winning reading. In either hand a hastening angel called our lingering parents, and to the eastern gate led them direct, and down the cliff as fast to the subjected plain, then disappeared. They looking back, all the eastern side beheld of paradise so late, their happy seat. Waved over by that flaming brand, the gate with dreadful faces thronged in fiery arms. Some natural tears they dropped, but wiped them soon. The world was all before them, where to choose their place of rest, and Providence their guide. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden, took their solitary way. Isn't that marvelous? Isn't that absolutely marvelous? If you want me to pick my favorite moment in English literature, that's is what I just read there. I just think it's so wonderful because it captures the ejection of mankind from Eden from the point of view of mankind. And that, that they've been thrown out, they're kind of looking back, and there's the angel with a flaming sword, and they're not allowed back in. And they shed a few tears, but then they turn around and look before them. And they go wherever they want. And notice, and Providence is still their God. God hasn't abandoned them. He's just thrown them out of paradise. So I just think that's absolutely